Welcome to the Creative Works podcast from WheelWorks Arts. I'm Tom Thorpe, the Communications Officer at WheelWorks Arts and the host for the podcast for this season of programmes. WheelWorks Arts, a leading youth arts charity in Northern Ireland that has, since 1995, been working and engaging with children and young people using creative art. The charity exists to support children and young people's social and cultural development through accessible and innovative community-based programmes. These programmes provide a fusion of traditional and digital art forms, harnessing the arts for learning and growth by supporting young people's expression, their voices and ideas. For more information, visit our website at wheelworksarts.com. This programme is Season 1, Episode 1, and on today's programme I talk to Farah Chowdhury, the CEO of WheelWorks Arts, and Mairéad Duffy, the chair of the charity. They sit down with me to give you an introduction to who we are and what we do. So before we get started, Mairead and Farah, could you introduce yourselves and tell us about yourselves and your roles at WheelWorks Art? I don't know who wants to start. Mairead, do you want to start?
I will, sure. So I have been a board member with WheelWorks now coming up a year, a very, very fast and a very event-filled year in the whole landscape of working with young people in an arts context. More on that later. My background, I have been a head of music in a grammar school in County Tyrone for 24 years. I am a musician. I am a teacher. I am a singer-songwriter. I'm a choral director. I'm all of those things, along with being a wife and mum to a son and a daughter, 20 and 16. And I currently work with Music Generation, which is an organisation that's based in the south of Ireland. I work in the National Development Office of Music Generation. And in that role, I work with music development officers and their musician educator teams across the whole south of Ireland, working towards the highest quality music making experiences for children and young people outside a curriculum context. So our work can and does take place in schools, but it's not part of the official curriculum. So a lot of work takes place in kind of youth contexts as well. So youth hubs, working with youth organisations. So you can probably see the link here with my attraction to WheelWorks, and why, it's lovely to be involved with something, closer to home in that the north of Ireland is now my home.
My name is Farah. I am the CEO of WheelWorks Arts. Since 2015, I've had the privilege to be part of this leading and progressive youth arts charity. Our work in WheelWorks mainly focuses on future leaders, the young people, of Northern Ireland. The key thing for us is to be able to connect to these young people. Particularly, we are focused on these young people who are at the margins of our society. And we use arts and digital technology or digital creativity to inspire them and to get them to tell their own stories. In terms of, I've been in Northern Ireland since 1993. I've made WheelWorks a home. Before WheelWorks, I lived in Leeds. Prior to that, I lived in Bangladesh. I'm a mom, a grandmother, and I'm passionate about particularly inclusion, diversity, and equity. So that brings me to work for this fantastic organization. We have 11 staff members, about 20 to 25 freelance artists, and we're all very passionate about bringing creative magic in the lives of young people, particularly in the inner city areas and interface areas where we know these kind of work really makes a difference in the lives of these young people.
I suppose I should come back to Mairead, as you've given us an outline of roughly what you do, Farah. Mairead, what is your role in WheelWorks?
Yes, well, I have managed to find myself in the position of acting chair of WheelWorks at the moment. because it's a very important time for WheelWorks, given the funding context that we, are living in and living through, and trying to strategize through at the moment. So I suppose I get to bring my experience, my direct experience of working with young people, to the organization. And whilst my experience is, music specific, if you like, that's my art form, I still have that experience of the relationship piece with young people and with fellow artists, which is so important when we get in a space with young people. I mean, we have to get on with them. We have to be able to relate to them, in order to make whatever we're trying to do, in the encounter work, and be enjoyable and inspirational, and all of the affirming things that we know it can be. So I bring that expertise, and I suppose also I'm really, really interested in the quality of the experience all of the time. So it's one thing to provide the opportunity, but it's equally important to make sure that opportunity is as great and brilliant as it can be. And I'm very aware that I come with my skill set, and I've joined a board of really diverse and interesting people. So we all bring a different perspective to the table. And it's in that context of lots of different skills that, we bring all of that to WheelWorks. And I suppose personally, I'm learning so much from my fellow board members, and not least from Farah, in the inspiring and dynamic way she leads the team at WheelWorks. So it's a really, really great environment to be in as a board. You really feel part of it. You're really part of it, and getting to know the staff, and just envisioning rather the future of what it can be and what we want it to be.
And we've talked very much about sort of arts and arts provision to younger people. Well, what does art mean to you? I wonder whether you could sort of give us an idea of yourselves through a piece of art that you have found moving and makes you, I suppose, moves you in a certain way. Farah, I'm going to come back to you and ask you what piece of art you'd have and why. I know it's a bit like Desert Island Discs.
To me, arts is, if you think of art, it's everywhere now, in many ways. It's in the eye of the beholder. A piece of art that is really dear to my heart is art that my dad painted. Unfortunately, he didn't give it to me. He gave it to my son. I'm raging about that. But it is a beautiful piece of art, and it's a backdrop of a river landscape, and it is so amazing. It shows it's in the context of Bangladesh. Beautiful backdrop of scenery, but the hustle and bustle of life is there. The trading is happening. Kids are swimming on the, in the river. And when you see it, you think, wow, how beautiful the nature is, giving us the space to do all the things of life that we like to do, whether making money, whether interacting with people, whether enjoying the landscape, whether having fun. So that's a piece of art that is really dear to my heart. It is in my living room, but I know my son will take it when he has his own house and I'll miss it dearly. But yeah, absolutely. That's what I love the art. There is lots of arts, and where to start, where to end. But this is close to my heart. I see it every day and get inspired by it.
Mairead.
I struggled with this because I was immediately drawn to, when I think of art, I think of it all. I think of theatre, dance, music, so I was being pulled towards musical recent examples. But I actually, as Farah was speaking, I think I got a little bit of WheelWorks inspiration, because actually a piece of art that really, I can still remember it, the first time I encountered it, is the beautiful Narnia sculptures up at C.S. Lewis Square in Belfast. And the first time I came upon them, I can remember my breath being taken away by the sheer beauty, and particularly of Aslan. I mean, when you follow the path around and you come to him in all his glory, I mean, it really is quite breathtaking. And a lovely aside is I got to have a conversation with the sculptor, Maurice Harron, a Donegal man, for a musical linkage I was doing with something. But yeah, I love C.S. Lewis writing. So I suppose it's pulling in the literature there. But just the way he captured the spirit of those characters, and they're there for everybody to enjoy, to go and have a cup of tea and sit there with Aslan behind you and all the other characters. It really is. It's right in our doorstep. It's so beautiful. Well, I mean, it's not, I have to get in the car and drive, but it is in Belfast, and wow, it's such a beautiful thing to have. Yeah. So that's mine.
Right. Well, let's turn to what WheelWorks does. Now, it works with younger people. Farah, I wondered whether you could give us a slight introduction. I know you've already touched on what the charity does, but could you just expand on that and just give us a bit of background on what WheelWorks Arts is and what it does?
If we just keep it very simple, what WheelWorks does is uses arts and technology, which is very much something that, as we have been sharing, touches everybody, and young people aren't immune to it. And what we do, it is bring that element of art. And like Mairead was saying, what is art? Art can be so much, and bringing it to the forefront to the young people, the art element and the technology, which they are very much, the 21st century young people are into technology, and show them that the sector is so powerful in enabling them to have a conversation in a third party format, like, how do I put it, express their stories, talk about their feelings, share their particular experiences through animation, drama, and the process of working with them using the various forms of art form is actually particularly enables the young people not only increase their creative skills, but also their personal skills, which is what is so valuable and important as we progress or as they progress into adulthood. The right attitude, the right confidence, the trust building, those are very important life skills that will provide them to capture the life chances they have.
What sort of group does WheelWorks operate with? What sort of, how could you describe, I suppose, the clientele that many of our programs actually engage with?
Yeah, particularly in WheelWorks, we work with all young people. We have got varied programs, from taking our Art Cut, which is our outreach-led program, to community transformation, working with interface and good relations. Then Future Focus program, which works with young people who are at risk and on the street. And then we have I program, which particularly focuses on working with trauma and cared experience young people. And also we are currently doing quite a lot of work with the newcomer community, particularly focusing on the needs of the refugee and the asylum seeker young people and their experiences these young people have. So in many ways, we work with all young people, but our focus is working with young people of this diverse category that I have, explained to you, but with the focus of making sure that any marginalization or barriers they have can be overcome through the work we do with them, particularly using arts and technology.
So why is arts and technology important? What benefit does it bring to these children and young people?
I think one of the most important thing for young people is you can't tell them what to do. That's the most important thing. This is our lesson, is you need to get them engaged in the way they want to express their stories, express their views. And arts and technology is a fantastic, arts is a creative medium, and technology is a medium that they're very used to it. And digital arts and digital technology blend in very well. And a lot of young people see both of those, particularly arts and technology. Their mind is focused on enjoying those arts and technology, and through those we create a very safe and creative and inclusive space for them to share their lived experiences, work together with each other, build friendship, have trusted relationship, have better understanding of each other. So the most, if you ask me to say it in one word, it is a connecting mechanism to connect with the young people in a nutshell. And we find arts and technology is a very powerful medium that enables the young people to see the creative magic. You can see in their eyes, you can see the conversations they come out with. And it is a fantastic, like Mairead was saying, a tool of engagement, participatory, but also a powerful tool which has powerful impact at the end as well, rather than just a conversation,
Yeah, I mean, I think what digital arts does, it provides a way in to tap into creativity. And I passionately believe we were all born creative. We are all creative, but through life and our experiences, perhaps educationally, I'll just put that out there. Creativity is not first and foremost of our existence. As adults, we've forgotten how to play. So by reconnecting with that innate creativity, I think it provides ways into ourselves to explore, to question, to understand. I just think it's a really powerful way of getting in touch with ourselves, in touch with our presence on this earth, and a way to communicate with the other person in our space. And that could be a person of a similar shared experience, or very importantly, in our context up here in the north of Ireland, coming from a different perspective, because I do believe we have more in common than what divides us. And it's really, really important that as we try and see into the future, we see a place where we are, as Farah said, it is inclusive. It's not divisive. There's a space for everyone to be welcomed. There's a space of mutual respect, of differing backgrounds and traditions, and there's more than two now. There's lots of differing backgrounds here, and that's our world. We've become a more globalized place anyway. And I think it's very important at the moment for us to create space for young people to have voice, to advocate for their future, because let's name it, if we look to our non-functioning executive at the moment, us adults aren't really giving the best example. So why don't the artistic community do that? And I see WheelWorks being able to do that, giving voice, giving young people a way to express their dreams, what their hopes are for the future, and I think I've probably gone on a tangent there, but I think art gives us a way to do that, in a really authentic way, because you can't say that somebody's creativity is wrong. It's their creativity, and I think it's so exciting to have that happening in a space, to tap into that potential with a young person, that they may realize they love something that they never had the opportunity to engage in before, because, technology is not cheap, and, not every house have oodles of iPads and everything, so from the digital perspective that WheelWorks, that it facilitates, that's a really important avenue that I think is very accessible given the world we live in today that is so digitally literate, and also, of course, the huge potential there is in terms of career and work in this area as well. But again, if a young person has never experienced that, and that they have perhaps a talent or a flair for it, sure, they don't know, they don't know that that's a possible avenue that maybe they could explore, and gosh, there are so many opportunities here at the moment for that. So I see digital arts, there are so many possibilities by, enabling this kind of fun and creativity. I don't want to call it work, but to happen with WheelWorks and young people. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to add something to it. I think that one of the most important thing is the process. The process of arts blended with technology actually is the key to those learning that and the inspiration and the possibilities and particularly the potentials that Mairead was talking about in the young people. And that's the beauty of engaging with arts and technology, blending in arts, technology. We use also coaching techniques, we use mentoring techniques, we use youth engagement techniques. So all these are actually part of the package. It's not isolated. It's a combination of things that come together. And that is the reason, like Mairead was saying, it opens those opportunities that young people may not have thought of or may not have knew that it exists, or that they're good at it, or they like it even, because they haven't experienced it. So yeah, that's the reason arts is so important.
So we move to, I suppose, the looming threat that many of these services are under. And there's a whole series of proposed cuts in Northern Ireland as we record in the summer of 2023 to the funding of organisations like WheelWorks and many others. As a bit of a background, Farah, I think you're probably best placed. Could you tell us a bit about what the cuts have been, or what the proposed cuts may do, and a bit of background on them?
I think the one thing we have to realize is that the cuts are everywhere. You can't escape it. Every time you look at the news, whether it's an education authority, whether it's justice, Department of Justice, whether it's any kind of departments are making those cuts. Arm length bodies are affected, and then it filters down to voluntary sector like ourselves. We are directly impacted because a lot of the grassroots work requires resources and funding to be able to do those powerful work that we've just been, discussing or chatting about. And the reality is that if these cuts continue, because a lot of cuts have already come in place, which has affected our work and has affected the grassroots level work, because we've been talking to quite a lot of our own, partner organizations. And in many ways, antisocial issues, isolation, mental issue, well-being, all those are really surfacing, particularly more so now because a lot of young people are not in school, a lot of them not into education, and there is lack of provisions, particularly in those inner city and marginalized community. There is nothing there to fill that gap. That's the reality. The gap is there, and the gap will remain there, and things will be going backward rather than forward, because there is no resources in those community to let the young people know we're there for them. Basically, they will be feeling isolated, left out, not heard of, those very things that we don't want them. We want them engaged. We want them to be future leaders. We want them to be all these things. And all I can say to you is it has affected WheelWorks as a voluntary organization and a charity, and it has affected all our partners that we work with. And I am sure, reading the news and the papers, it seems to have affected the community in totality in many different ways. Well, through food banks to cuts in services, everything is part of that conundrum that we are in currently.
What impact do we think these cuts and wider problems that you've outlined will have on the all the young people that we work with, especially those from marginalized backgrounds?
We talked about equity, we talked about inclusion, we talked about diversity, which is the fundamental of what we do. Any kind of cuts in the grassroots level with these young people means these have been compromised. Basically, that's what I will say. And if these have been compromised, means more young people engaging in risk-taking behaviors, more of them feeling isolated, more of them feeling lonely, more mental health issues progressing, more antisocial behaviors, more young people feeling they're left out because the provisions that are in their own community is a place for them to go to. And if that is taken away from them, the reality is there isn't a lot of money for them to go out on holiday, do this, do that, a lot of those things. They do have a lot of barriers in terms of poverty and other things. So it is so important that we need to reflect on the long-term effect this will have, and we need to catch ourselves on, and start really looking at that. How do we do the damage is limited by very quickly putting back on those frontline services that are highly critical to these young people reach their own potentials.
Like, it's young people that this is going to impact. I mean, the whole of society has been impacted, but when we think about the future, there's going to be so many missed opportunities if all of the good work that has begun, and is in train, now look at, there are other conversations about the really dire need for multi-year funding to build on the work, because obviously you want to track, you want to be able to follow the young people you're working with in terms of the impact that it is making on their lives. Do you know what I mean? Because impact's huge. It's really, really critical. It's very hard, I imagine, when you're faced with cuts and, everybody's budgets are reduced. But, this is the future we're talking about. And as Farah has said, when young people in these marginalized areas who already have, let's name it, the odds stacked against them for lots of reasons, when they have, activities withdrawn because the funding has been taken away, well, then there is going to be an attraction to be engaged in, risk-taking behavior, antisocial behavior. Whereas, we have the evidence of that, from our coordinators working with, the organizations at grassroots level. And when the activity is on, those young people are engaged in a positive activity, that it's as simple as that. Take it away, there's a vacuum. And we all know that, bad things happen in vacuums. It's not a positive place to be. And I just feel so strongly about the fact that the opportunities that have been created, the relationships that have been made and are being started, to be made with young people, with their youth workers, because this is all about partnership. We can't not do this work. It's of vital importance, and I actually feel, in terms of social value of the value of the actual work, it's the return is far greater than the actual monetary, value that it actually costs, if you like, to pay that, artist or facilitator, in the work, because this is somebody's life that, and I don't feel that's too dramatic. Actually, I feel, this could be the difference between making a couple of decisions, one which could leave in a really negative way, and one which could open the door to a future of what if possibilities, but if that young person doesn't have that opportunity to experience the what ifs in a positive light, then it's not a very positive future for us, for them, for our country.
I think,
if I may add, with what Mairead has said, there's two things we talk about, particularly if it is in the areas, the marginalization, all those that we are currently talking about, the young people, the barriers they face. Is it, intervention, proper intervention leads to prevention, and that's a very simple way of saying that if we want future leaders, if we want future generation to be flourishing, then we need to do this intervention to avoid, and progress with preventative measures that enhances those opportunities, like Mairead was saying, to continue, with enabling them to reach their potential, regardless of where they come from. That's why it is so important. That's why our work, and lots of people like us who do this work, lots of youth organization, community organization, voluntary sector organizations, very much focused on enabling the young people to think inclusive, to be inclusive, to be reflective. All those are very simple words to say, but a lot of hard work and process needs to go through to make those a reality in any of our lives. That's the reality.
I suppose some people listening to this might feel this is rather special pleading coming from an arts organisation, of nice people who do arts, and it's a sort of the arts should be funded. Why not the prison? So how would you respond to that?
Do you want me to start?
Yes,
got me started.
Go for it.
I'll keep it very measured. We're not saying that others don't deserve the funding at all. We're saying the work that is done with the young people, whether it's in sports sector, in arts sector, digital sector, creative sector, or in any other sector, is equally valuable. We're not asking for any kind of special any kind of special treatment. All we're saying is the intervention that we do with arts, blending it with mentoring, youth work, and digital technology has a very powerful impact. And taking those work away means that the life chances, the creative opportunities are limited for these young people who need it the most. That's what I would be, going with. Mairead, if you want to say something, add to it.
I think you've said it beautifully. I just love your phrase, intervention leads to prevention. Like it's too late when they end up in prison. We're then dealing with different circumstances of rehabilitation, of, you know what I mean? Because Absolutely. The opportunities were missed is how I see that. And absolutely, as Farah says, young people in an inclusive, equitable society, every young person should be able to access, to try things out, be that swimming or football or dancing or drawing, all of those things. And I suppose we are providing a particular niche of digital arts exploration for young people. Some people may absolutely adore it. Some people may prefer to have a ball in their hands. That's what makes life so beautifully interesting. But it's providing the opportunity, so that a young person gets to decide, gets to choose whether because of course they always do choose whether they want to engage or not, and that's really important. They have choice in this. It's what makes it different to school and formal education, so that's the space that a lot of our young people that I suppose we are our targeted approach is here. Would you like to try this? Or would you like to try this? And we have some amazing team members on staff who do that so beautifully. I've seen them in action. I've been inspired by a visit to the art cart way back in October, and just, really realizing that this is not a just society. Every young person doesn't have the same opportunities. And I suppose we are fighting the fight, shouting the call for young people, for their inclusion in this society and for them to have the best chance they can. And our path is through digital arts. And as Farah said so rightly, it's not, we are one path and there are several. But the fact is, all of the paths are being severely compromised right now. And ultimately, it's going to be the young people, and it's going to be good work being undone, if we can't continue to progress the work, because it's really important. It's not just a nice thing. We know that it's way more, it is a nice thing, but it's way more important than just something nice to do. It can have a profound influence. And that's why the multi-year funding is so important in terms of really building on it, because as a young person matures, their needs are going to be different. They're going to need different kinds of support, and that's very hard to kind of work within a year-on-year funding application model, which all organizations are very familiar with. But it does have limitations as well, And I feel it would be remiss not to kind of say it, because it is really hard trying to plan ahead when you don't know what you can plan, because you don't know your budget. And I suppose this year more than ever, that has brought that home, because the budgets have been reduced.
I suppose my final point would be, well, that's all very nice, but is there any evidence that these interventions actually change lives and have a positive impact on young people?
The programs that we run, before that, I just would like to add one thing. Particularly, we talked a lot about inclusive and diverse city that needs to happen within the young people. In Northern Ireland, even today, there are young people who could get into from childhood to adulthood without any interaction with other people from different religion, background, or race. And that has to change, And you said about the impact. What is the impact? The impact is, this is a very important impact. We make sure that young people from diverse communities can interact together. To me, that it has its own huge value, because if we want inclusion in Northern Ireland, we want it to be an inclusive space. We want to welcome everybody. This is where it starts, with the young people, the future leaders, and hence the impact. I could give lots of stats, but one of the main impact I would see is making sure young people not only have the interventions or the opportunities in their own community, but also they are able to get out of their community, interact with other young people, and make friendship, build trusted relationship. And to me, that is, I don't have to say it, but in Northern Ireland, we know how valuable this particular point is. And like Mairead said, in the current context, it's not just it's a global Northern Ireland we are heading towards. And hence, the impact is immense, as I've just mentioned. Mairead, do you want to add anything?
I mean, I think in terms of impact, I suppose, firsthand, my experience of working through music with young people, I can think of so many young people who I saw blossom and grow in that artistic environment, where they didn't even know that they could sing and dance or whatever it was, and I've seen their confidence grow. And whether they wish to go off and pursue, a career, their lives have been culturally enriched by their experience with something that they hadn't experienced before. It might have been a different style of music or something. And they bring that into their adult life. And then if they have children, they value cultural life, and to me, that's really important, because there are so many aspects of life that, if we think about, maybe the audience, what the audience looks like going to a play in the Lyric or an opera in the Opera House, I think we could say, that the Opera House and the theatres are really trying to encourage and include a more diverse audience. And I think what we're doing here is that, we are raising awareness of culture and how much it can add to your life as a practitioner, as a member of a choir, as an audience member, as a parent who values that part of your child's life, And the reality at the moment is that as a parent, for some parents living in areas of socioeconomic deprivation, their young people don't have the opportunity to engage, because that disposable income is not there. It's seen as a luxury. And there are so many organizations who are trying to make it more equitable, that it's not down to being able to afford it. One of the biggest indicators of childhood poverty is culture and access to, and this is accessing culture in a really contemporary way when we talk about digital arts, but that's a human right, for a child and a young person, which, okay, food is obviously very important, education, all of those things, but so is access to culture and inspiration and connection. And it's hugely important. You know, we don't live in a black and white world. We live in a colourful world with lots of different people and lots of different cultures. And I really do believe we're the better for it when we are able to be in that inclusive, you know, it's not them and us, it's us, you know, and getting to know people from different cultures. And it just makes our life better and richer and, you know, more colourful. And I kind of think the colour's been turned down a wee bit at the moment. And it's really concerning. You know, we really have to hold tight and fight hard for it because it really matters. I'll be quiet now.
Farah, Mairead, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.